Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. Can you start $1 million business over the course of a weekend, over just 48 hours? So many of us have the dream of becoming our own boss or becoming an entrepreneur, but in a lot of ways, it can feel overwhelming to start your own venture. It could be from the stance that you don't want to let go of the security of your regular paycheck, a very valid reason because life comes at you fast and hard. 30 days passes before you know it, and suddenly the next round of bills are due. It could be that you don't even have an idea for a business, but you just know you want to do your own thing. Or maybe you're worried about the prospect of failing. Listen, I have fallen for every single one of these excuses. I have definitely had businesses that totally flopped, which is not fun, especially when you do it in a very public way, but you get past it. And I want to say that any single one of these excuses can be valid. And I just think it's important to know that every single entrepreneur out there has had these kinds of thoughts. I'm not sure if you guys know Noah Kagan. He has an absolutely amazing channel here on YouTube where he basically goes over entrepreneurial strategies or talks to incredibly successful people. So if you haven't checked him out, I highly recommend doing so. Outside of his really successful YouTube channel, he's the owner of a multi-million-dollar company, and he recently released this book, $1 Million Weekend, the surprisingly simple way to launch a 7-figure business in 48 hours, which, to be fair, it's a little bit of a clickbait title, but clickbait titles don't really bother me all that much. It's kind of the name of the game in today's culture. You've got to get someone to pick up your book. You've got to get someone to click on your video. But this book was truly phenomenal, and honestly, if you're looking to start a business, it's full of absolutely wonderful gems. First and foremost, very early on in the book, he starts out with the notion of act first and figure it out later, saying that so many people get stuck in the trap of overthinking, thinking you have to have everything perfectly figured out before you get started. But rarely do we have everything figured out. So many people just get stuck in this stage of overthinking. And I can 100% say that I fell into this pitfall for years. When I was working in my corporate job and I dreamed of starting my own business, I felt like I had to have all my ducks in a row before I could start. I had to have the perfect business plan. I had to run every possible market scenario. But the reality was, I was just dragging my feet. I was scared to start because I was scared to fail. But he makes the argument, if you just act first, you can always make course corrections and adjustments along the way. One of the biggest obstacles people face is that they just don't get started. This is advice I wish I would have gotten 18 years ago. My first degree I ever got, my undergrad degree, is in entrepreneurship. You know what you don't need to start a business? A degree in entrepreneurship. And this is coming from a person who highly values education. Having that degree is not a prerequisite. Honestly, just getting started would have been better. Customers don't care about your ideas. They care about whether you can solve their problems. And you should not build your ideas into a business if you don't know with 100% certainty that it's a solution your customers will pay for. Basically, don't build a business unless you know there are paying customers for this business. And this is really one of the central themes of this book. And again, I kind of wish it was a message that somebody would have told me 18 years ago. Because if you invest time, money, and energy into a business that customers aren't willing to pay for, all you've done is waste your resources. Noah constantly reiterates the point that you need to test the waters. He has what he calls the golden rule for validation. Find 3 customers in 48 hours who will give you money for your idea. He has 3 criteria for this. You only get 48 hours. You're setting a deadline that forces you to act. You have to get 3 customers. You're welcome to reach out to friends or family, but likely you're going to have to extend beyond friends and family to get 3 paying customers. And the final criteria, they have to be willing to pay you up front. If they're not willing to pay you up front, that's a polite rejection. Noah phrases it like this. There's a big difference between what people say and what people do. Everyone's interested until they have to pay. I was recently toying with a product idea for my day job, which is in dental, and I ran some market testing. I called dental offices and described the product to them and asked if they would be interested in buying this if I had it available. 100% of the offices I talked to said yes. Then I started reading this book and I realized my fatal flaw. I never asked anyone to put any money down. So I realized I had to call back because at that point I had just thought it was enough to ask for an opinion. So I called those offices back and I called some new offices, but this time I asked them to put money down. And rather than getting a resounding 100% yes, I actually got yes about 60% of the time. But that does mean they actually put money down, which told me it was an idea worth pursuing, but it gave me a more realistic expectation. Not to mention the fact that if you have people who actually paid you for your product, you now have a really big incentive to make this product. You have people counting on you. It lights a fire under you. You can no longer say, I'll get to it one day. One day is today when you already have a customer. His whole point is that if you get someone to actually pay you based off simply describing your idea, whether it's a product or a service, you know you have a rock solid idea. You want to validate your idea before you invest into building a business around it. That's why you want to take these 48 hours and reach out to customers or clients or potential customers and clients and see if they have any interest in it. It's better to find out that your idea is a total flop before you invest anything into it. And if the idea is a total dud, no sweat. You haven't put much effort in it. And this is kind of where that tagline of $1 Million Weekend comes into play. Because if you're willing to take an idea and test it for 48 hours, see if the market wants it, well, then it's just an easier game to play as a potential entrepreneur. That gives you 52 chances to test out different ideas. Dedicate one idea to every single weekend. And if you're willing to do this, I bet you'd find an idea or two that stick before you actually hit a full year's worth of ideas. And I think looking at it like this takes so much of the pressure off. Instead of thinking this has to be the one idea that works, instead of being married to an idea and thinking it has to be perfect, you kind of have a healthy level of detachment from it. You trial it out, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. If an idea flops, you simply move on to the next one. And this kind of mindset really gets you past that paralysis that people get stuck in of, I just don't have the perfect idea yet. And so much of Noah's philosophy about being willing to start a business is really the idea of embracing rejection. When you're market testing a product and people say no, probe deeper. Ask, why not? Or do you know of someone who might be interested in this? Or what could make this decision a no-brainer for you? And if they're willing to offer up a great suggestion, ask them the price they'd be willing to pay for it. And that's really the beauty of not being married to an idea, that you remain flexible. Maybe you find that you were just a couple pivot points away from a phenomenal idea, and it's just through customer feedback that you were able to develop this phenomenal product. Consider financial freedom. If you think we're going to make it through a video without discussing financial freedom, you've got another thing coming. Noah actually starts out the book by saying there's great freedom in knowing what your financial freedom number is. Now, in the traditional sense, when we talk about financial freedom, we talk about a nest egg large enough to sustain you without needing a paycheck. But that's not really the number that Noah's referring to. Instead, he says to figure out your bare bones income that you need, the income that you would need to reach as an entrepreneur to sustain yourself, saying that for most people, this number is less than they actually imagined. So total up all your necessary expenses. Think food and housing, savings. What would that number be? And this kind of perspective actually makes me think of the survival threshold that Bill Perkins talks about. Noah goes on to say, many struggle to find their first dollar because they're so focused on how to make their first million. And I think there can be a lot of truth to that. A lot of people feel like I have to come up with this idea that's the next Apple or Facebook or Tesla or whatever huge corporation there is out there. But that can put you in a state of paralysis thinking I have to have the next greatest idea. But what if you walked it back a bit? And what if you said, what if I could build a business that would just cover my expenses? Or what if you developed a product or a service that brought in an additional $1,000 a month? This can take a lot of the pressure off. This can actually make it seem fun. This can make it seem like a challenge. I truly thought this was a wonderful book on becoming an entrepreneur. And I feel like the big overarching message of the book is that you have to take the pressure off. You have to find a way to make it fun. Get rid of the idea of failure. You're probably going to fail plenty of times. Get rid of the idea that you have to have everything figured out before you start. Just try to get started. Get rid of the idea that you have to build the next greatest company that there is in existence. Rather, just try to develop a product or a service that the marketplace needs. Actually test it out before you develop it. Make sure that you have some level of certainty that you actually have a customer base before putting any efforts into building this company. There were two other really important points made in this book that are worth noting. Noah suggests holding yourself accountable, telling a trusted friend or confidant about your goals, and making sure that it's actually somebody who will call you out if you're not meeting the goals you've set for yourself. It can be really easy to make all these false promises to yourself that you just don't follow through on. To this day, this is one that I struggle with. I hate putting a standard out there that someone is going to hold me to. because what if I miss the mark? I way rather prefer just to work quietly and take care of my own things without telling anybody. But if you're working on things alone, it's really easy to tell yourself, oh, I can just give myself another week, or maybe it wasn't really that important and I don't even need to do it. But if you have someone waiting in the wings, checking in with you, saying, hey, this was your goal to take care of this by Friday, are you on track? It's kind of hard to skirt the issue. The challenge of your business and your life is designing a system that optimizes your overall happiness. Noah built a multi-million-dollar business, and then he said he still felt like crap. He had more success than he ever imagined, but he was unhappy. And it was because his success and his business had taken over his life. All he did was work. He didn't leave himself any time to actually enjoy his life. And point blank, he is 1,000 times more successful than I am. But I do feel like I've been able to reach a small level of success. And I definitely fell into this trap. And I feel like it's an easy trap for entrepreneurs to fall into. I was doing absolutely everything myself. This YouTube channel, 100% me. I was putting off hiring anyone for my dental billing company. I was just taking care of everything. Even after the business expanded fourfold, it was an absolutely unsustainable workload. But still, I thought I could pull everything off. I was working 7 days a week, sometimes 12-hour days. And then I had a baby, and I tried to keep up that same workload. Let's throw a picture of Jameson on the screen just so I can fund his Roth. As you can imagine, it didn't work out, and I was absolutely miserable. But I had a good friend help me out, and I ended up hiring a few employees for my dental business. So these days, I have learned to buy my time back, as he told me. And I still work a little bit too much, but I am getting better. But as an entrepreneur, don't let work completely take over your life. Use your work to design the life you want. And if you're a hopeful entrepreneur, I think the book $1 Million Weekend is full of wonderful gems that can help get you there. What are your guys' thoughts? Are you entrepreneurs, or is that something you're interested in being one day? Let me know your thoughts in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.